back in 2021, 2022, I think on a Vahan website where electric two-wheelers are registered, there were over 65, 70 brands. Now, you look at the Vahan portal right now and almost more than half of them have just disappeared.
Last month's list of top 10 sellers in electric two-wheeler Vahan data. TVS, Ola, Bajaj, Ather, Hero Motocorp, Greaves Electric, Pure Energy, Bigos, Kinetic and River. Of this top 10 list, only 3 of them are not, created Indian products. The rest are all products that have been developed for India, created in India.
Fantastic.
From either startup or legacy. And I think I'm really happy to see that.
You got to give credit to the startups. I would say woken up the legacy players to do a lot more than what they were doing to begin with.
IQ came out for the first time in 2020. Chetak came out for the first time in 2020. And both of them were slow to start off. Chetak particularly. It's only last year where the momentum really started. 23 to some point, but 24 was big and now they're leading.
Gone are the days wherein you could shore up valuation by showing promise, but in the Indian automotive market, the most difficult thing to do is to create a brand and create your mindshare amongst varied options that are available in the marketplace. And you got to offer that value. Unfortunately, all that we heard over the years was just talk.
Welcome to Deep Drive, our weekly automotive podcast powered by Kotak Mahindra Prime. It's the second week in a row where we're talking about two-wheelers, and this time we're here to talk about the electric two-wheeler industry. In the last 5 years, it's transformed in a huge way. It really started off with the startups. It has now evolved to have the legacy players leading the way. I'm Rishaad Mody.
Hi, I'm Ketan Thakkar.
And we are here today to discuss this journey of the two-wheeler EV space and how it's evolved.
Now, phenomenal, Rishaad, as to how this market used to be just less than 1 lakh units not too long ago, just before COVID. And today, we are talking about a market of 1.2 million. If you were to look at, where were these players when the entire journey started? Everyone was questioning as to why are legacy players really not serious about electrification and push towards cleaner mobility. We knew, and we used to discuss that in office as well, that, is this a matter of time before the volumes grow and they will be ready? Of course, there was a lot of work that was happening in the R&D front. But you got to give credit to the startups. Ather is a real India electric story, right? I mean, the company recently listed on stock exchanges and it got decent enough response. Yes, started way back in 2013 and actually started getting traction only around COVID time. It was led by subsidy support from the government of India. We saw various iterations of it from FAME 1, FAME 2, and eventually we did see the subsidies correcting itself. But yes, you saw these startups, they had belief in the market. But unfortunately, to begin with, there was a barrage of brands in the market, and one really did not know where do these brands come from. And we had seen a lot of these Chinese cheap imports making its way into the Indian market. That in a way, while created a lot of variety, but it created a lot of challenge because in an emerging category like electric vehicles, you really do not want substandard products, so that you have early detractors who actually curb the evolution of the category, and which is exactly what we saw. But at the same time, while we started talking about Ather and Ola, those were the two poster boys who actually pushed the case. While the initial part of the decade, it was Ather Energy, really solid product, solid R&D, and we saw how those products proved on the roads. But it was large money that Ola brought in from SoftBank, and the belief that, Pavish Agarwal can actually transform the Indian electric two-wheeler landscape. Ola started on a phenomenal note, but we always had question mark with regards to the product. They had acquired a company in Netherlands, and adapting those products for the Indian market, and that to bring it in such a short span of time, I'm sure there were a lot of question marks. But then, as the volumes grew, we saw legacy players coming into their own, and we've seen as to how in a short span of just 4 years, the legacy players, which used to account for less than 15-20% of the market, now account for 60% of the top 5 players. So it has been a phenomenal rise, and one has got to give credit to the startups for creating that initial buzz, and now legacy players to actually take this mantle forward as the penetration grows and there's more acceptability. The prices are getting closer to the conventional internal combustion engine scooter. So it has been a phenomenal rise of moving from 100,000 electric two-wheelers to almost 1.2 million, Rishaad. What's been your assessment of how the Indian electric two-wheeler market has evolved?
For me, for a few years, it was frustrating because the leaders of the segment were effectively rebadged Chinese products.
Yeah.
Some of them, the companies were open about the fact that they were rebadged. Some of them blatantly lied about it. And for a good 2-3 years, these were the top selling products. And that to me was frustrating. It just shows how difficult it is to set up and establish a company to big numbers that quickly. It's something Ather's been at for since the time they started developing their scooter, let's say, more than a decade.
Absolutely.
Ola really bucked that trend, and what they created in such a short time was amazing. How they did it, I completely disagree with. And I think there are two sides to that story. These rebadged Chinese products helped create something fast, but I think they created a sense of suspicion, mistrust in the segment that was unfortunate for the segment. And it's only going to be starting now where we see these tens of thousands of Chinese EVs that have been selling over the last 3 years and beyond, how they're going to fare in terms of reliability, how they're going to fare in terms of those batteries. And those companies, many of them no longer exist.
We've seen many players, and I remember way back in 2021, 2022, I think on a Vahan website where electric two-wheelers are registered, there were over 65, 70 brands. Now, you look at the Vahan portal right now and almost more than half of them have just disappeared.
That's not great for the industry.
Yeah.
At the same time, IQ came out for the first time in 2020. Chetak came out for the first time in 2020. And both of them were slow to start off. Chetak particularly. It's only last year where the momentum really started. 23 to some point, but 24 was big and now they're leading. So I'm glad it's happened. I wish it happened in a slightly different way. I think regulation did help get us to where we are at today. Regulation has been important. I wish that regulation came a little earlier. I suppose the powers did not recognize this growing segment the way it was back then. And when they did, they put good norms into place, FAME 2 particularly, and how they clamped down on the localized battery, localization and battery
manufacturing plan that will link to it.
So that was very important. I wish it came in earlier, but I'm glad that we are now on the right track. Be it startup or be it legacy. It needs to be a genuine, authentic product, not a rebadged Chinese product. And even if it is a Chinese product, let it be a good quality Chinese product. I'm not against the Chinese product. I'm against the cheap stuff that was dumped over here. I remember a few years ago at the Auto Expo, we used to try and go in early in the morning before the show started. Just walk around, get a feel for things. You never know what you might see. You always catch something there. And I remember one stand. I will not name who it was, but it was one of the two top players, the top sellers, who were putting their logos on the sticker, on the scooter.
Wow.
The scooter was there and they were sticking their company logo on it because it's not theirs. They're just prepping it for the show.
Insane.
So I'm glad that we moved on from that. But let's talk about how regulation played a role here.
No, it was very critical. I think there was a lot of chatter whether the categories to begin with unregulated. That is what led to so many of these cheap Chinese imports that came into India. And eventually, once the FAME 1 was implemented, it started seeing momentum, and people started finding value in electric two-wheelers. But then the government of India realized that there were many of them who were actually flouting the laws, which is when the FAME 2 came in. And that is where companies like Hero Electric and Okinawa had a very difficult time to get that FAME 2 certification. Yes, there were cases of electric two-wheelers catching fire. Clearly, some of those batteries that were imported from outside were not meant for India's, terrible dry, heat,
tough conditions.
tough conditions.
Yeah.
And there were interventions on the battery norms as well. The government of India came out with that. It disrupted the category for a while, which had seen support from government of India. But when you speak to the authorities on the government side, they were like, we are at a very early stage of adoption. So if we don't get the fundamentals right at this point in time, the category will have a lot to lose as the volumes progress. So I think while a lot of people did question those regulations every once in a while and uncertainty about enforcement and all that, there was disruption, most definitely. But what it led to was a strong uh, set of rules that focused on quality, that focused on make in India, that focused on local sourcing. And we have got a proof over the last couple of years. We've not really seen any cases of scooters catching fire. We've not seen any cases of customer complaints. Yes, some stray odd cases of suspension braking at Ola that was there. But those regulations were needed, and I think now regulations are fairly in place. And the government of India was also pretty clear that the subsidy is only there for a certain period of time. With the global battery prices falling, I think that also gave support to government of India to reduce subsidy. Now, today we've hit a scale and a point wherein a majority of them are actually moving towards making money. So that's a good place to be. Having said that, there are certain players like Ola who are actually very aggressive in the marketplace. Sometimes it defies logic as to how can you price a product at around 70,000 rupees. You're bleeding and you're selling. It actually has an impact on the market, but that's a marketing tactic that our largest player is playing at this point in time. But having said that, we've reached a point wherein the regulations are more or less sorted. Majority of the key players in the game, they've got their strategy sorted out. Now we have operations which are breaking even, making money. Now we have wider product portfolio. So I think the last 5 years, the transformation of the Indian two-wheeler electric vehicle market has been phenomenal. And it's amazing to see that the category is now hitting a scale which is very meaningful. It is about to reach double digit when it comes to the overall electric two-wheeler market. In the scooter space, it has already exceeded 16-17%. So I think we are getting to a sizable scale, and the legacy players with their scale and profitability are actually in a very good spot right now to drive the momentum going ahead, Rishaad.
I think we are also at a point where legacy has taken over from startup. I was looking at the Autocar Professional webpage this morning, just reading up for this podcast, and last month's list of top 10 sellers. In fact, I took a picture of it so I can actually read it off for us out here. Last month's list of top 10 sellers in electric two-wheeler Vahan data. TVS, Ola, Bajaj, Ather, Hero Motocorp, Greaves Electric, Pure Energy, Bigos, Kinetic and River. Of this top 10 list, only 3 of them are not created Indian products. The rest are all products that have been developed for India, created in India.
Fantastic.
From either startup or legacy. And I think I'm really happy to see that. And it also got me thinking that from here on, it's going to be really challenging for startups. There are a few startups that I think have potential. Like usually you're the one with the papers, but this month I printed out my own. The ones, obviously, Ola is still the market leader if you look at overall sales from the year. Maybe it'll change this year, but last year's market leader was Ola.
Yes.
Ather, just gone public. Definite huge potential there. Obain has seemingly got a lot of funding. They are expanding their dealer networks, although the sales numbers are quite small. I think this month, as of now, they've sold 53 units, according to Vahan, as of today, 13th May. Ampere, Greaves, they want to be called a startup. They come from a very old company, but let's call them a startup. They're doing fairly decently. River, there's more to discuss on River. We have a bit of exclusive information on River. We would never do a podcast without some exclusive information for you. So Ketan will share that in a bit.
Sure.
There's Matter, who has some potential. They've very slow start, but they have put a lot of engineering effort into it. Let's see where they go. Simple Energy, again, a company that made a lot of noise. Big talk for a long time. 1,000,000 units, 10 million units.
Insane.
And Simple Energy this month has sold, according to 100 units. But again, they have a plant. Let's see what they do. Let's see if they can raise funding. Ultraviolet, to me, is someone really, I'm keen to look out at what they're doing. They have proven their engineering capability, and now the affordable products will come out in a year's time. So let's give them a year. I think they will be up there. And Kinetic Green also doing some interesting things. But to be a startup and succeed now, I think is going to be very challenging.
Times have changed, Rishaad. Just immediately after COVID, there was a lot of money floating around from private equity majors wanting to pump in that money into some of these startups who actually promised millions of units. Ola Electric, when it first started off, Bhavish Agarwal had mentioned that they want to completely move the two-wheeler market to electric, and he had promised hitting million in a short span of time. Last financial year, they closed at 3.44 lakh units. So it's not an easy ask. Similarly, other startups, you mentioned Simple Energy, and there were many Aether Energy also kind of raised funds as the time went by. But a lot of these private equity players saw that it's not easy. Yes, you can come out with a fantastic product, but it takes a lot of effort to build a brand. And especially in a category which is still so small, and especially in a category wherein you have the legacy players who have the advantage of large scale
Supplier base.
Profit from the internal combustion engine actually fueling the EV business, which unfortunately a lot of these startups don't have. And a lot of these private equity players, they actually burned their fingers, given the fact that a lot of these startups, what they promised, they could not deliver. Come to today, some of the successful ones, Ola and Ather, they got the backing from public. They've listed. But you go out in the market right now to raise money, it's not easy. You really got to have a strong business case. Gone are the days wherein you could shore up valuation by showing promise. But in the Indian automotive market, the most difficult thing to do is to create a brand and create your mind share amongst varied options that are available in the marketplace. And you got to offer that value. Unfortunately, all that we heard over the years was just talk. And only the ones who have been able to translate that talk into action on ground zero, we have seen them getting money. So times have changed, but the good part is that with a localized sourcing base, with battery prices falling, with scale reaching 1.2 million, we are about to hit a business case wherein you can actually make money in the Indian electric two-wheeler market. But then you got to get down to the basic fundamental of how do you make an automotive product and how do you get your engineering sorted. You cannot challenge the conventional law of
Making a new vehicle.
I mean, we've seen what has happened when you come out with products way too quickly, it starts failing. So I think majority of these players, they've learned their lessons, and it's now getting down to a conventional automotive play wherein you've got to get your sourcing right, your engineering right, your product positioning right, and then it's about the best man wins out there.
I also learned, I mean, you're absolutely right about the challenge of making a brand, but from what I have learned observing this industry over the last 5-7 years is just how difficult it is to manufacture.
Absolutely.
Especially to manufacture in volume. You have hundreds, if you have to first earn their attention and that you are worth their time. You have to commit to them a certain number of volume and business. They have to be able to give you the quality that you need, because to build a prototype and a working functional vehicle, but to get that same quality consistently is so challenging. Then you've got to get all these components coming at the right time. One of them delays you, 2 of them, 10 of them delay you, you're effectively screwed. So there is so much challenge there, and I see this repeatedly with people who've been around for a while. We've ridden their products. The product is viable, okay to go on sale. There are apparently tens of thousands of bookings according to the company, and yet they've sold hundreds of units over a long period of time. So to me, that is the big challenge, and I see forthcoming massive challenges. I love what you said about having the existing business of legacy players fund the electric. The startups don't have that. They don't have the ability to navigate crazy uncertainties around tariffs, crazy uncertainties around what China is doing with us, with America. What is their plan for rare earth? What is their plan for supply? What is their plan for chips? How do they deal with us? Because we are a threat, especially when manufacturing is coming to us, not just in the EV, but also electrics, iPhone, whatever, things like that.
And prices going haywire along the way. It really disrupts the business.
Yeah, how do you cushion that
volatility?
Exactly. Which the legacy players, to me, have a massive advantage over the startups for now. So I would love to see the startups succeed, especially the ones I mentioned. More of them come in with something that the legacy players have not thought of. That's the beauty of startups. You can do something different. Welcome. But I think it's going to be really hard.
No, that's what, I mean, when a lot of these new players were coming in, Rishaad, when I saw them adopting what usually startups operate in, quick fixes, show agile moves, be quick, have a disruptive idea, an innovative idea. But if it defies law of development, law of physics, law of engineering, then you're going to have a compromised product. And in a bid to sometimes get the product ready for a fundraise perspective in a bid to hit a certain volume by pushing metal in the market in order to raise money. I think a lot of these startups actually committed harakiri. And that is where you got to have the holding power, the staying power, the patience to get the product right, to get the branding right, to get the go-to-market strategy right, to ensure that you are offering something different, something more than what a lot of these legacy players can offer you. If not, the value conscious Indian buyer is going to ignore you. He's going to move on to something that actually meets their purpose. So and I could see a lot of them, we interact with them on a regular basis. You do question them on the basic fundamentals of how to do business, that you've got to get your sourcing right, you've got to get the manufacturing right, you've got to get your pricing right, you've got to get your positioning right. If not, it's very hard for you to compete against large legacy players.
Yeah. And the startups need to be careful, watch out, because there's more legacy players coming in. So far, we have two big ones,
Right.
TVS and Bajaj, who are leading the fray. Hero MotoCorp not so far behind. New Hero MotoCorp Vida products going to be coming, which is going to amp up the challenge from there. Suzuki, we've seen the e-Access. All that matters to be seen now is what they price it at. Hopefully, it will be competitive. If it's competitive, it will do well. It's a Suzuki Access Electric. It's a simple, straightforward scooter with a decent-sized battery, LFP battery, which people are going to like for the safety.
Right.
There's a lot going for it as long as they can price it well. It has been delayed for some reason. We were supposed to ride it a month or two ago.
Yes.
Let's see what Suzuki does. We've got Honda. We know they've come out with two products we're not really kicked about, but more will come.
Yes.
Honda is going to be a big deal in the EV space in the next 2 to 3 years. There'll be lots of stuff. And then there's Yamaha. Ketan, what does Yamaha have in store?
Yes, Rishaad, Yamaha has been dabbling with the idea of bringing in the electric scooter for a while. But they learned...
Reported on this for a couple of years now. They're developing something. They've cancelled it. Now they're developing something else.
Yes. So, I mean, whatever that we've learned over the last couple of years is that the initial thought process was to kind of bring in an alternative which was implemented in Europe. But Yamaha realized that, what was given to Europe was more frugal, more
slow speed.
And in India, Yamaha was changing its the market position. I mean, Yamaha over the last 5 years we've seen has moved more towards the premium end of the market, and it was going against the character of how Yamaha is. So there was a lot of debate internally as to how will Yamaha cater to the growing, emerging electric vehicle space. Surprise, surprise. Last year, they invested some money in a startup called River. And that raised a lot of eyebrows. We had seen Hero putting in money in Ather, and we thought, probably there'll be some kind of a synergy there. We saw TVS putting in money in Ultraviolet. Yeah. So we saw there's a rationale behind putting in money in a startup. And
this is different though.
I never knew that, probably this will be the one that will translate so quickly. So what we understand, Rishaad, at this point in time, there is a Yamaha electric scooter coming soon. It may hit the roads in the next couple of quarters, and it is going to be designed and developed by River. It will be manufactured by River, but it will be branded as Yamaha.
And it's based on the River Indy.
Yes, it's based on the River Indy. And you've ridden River Indy.
Good scooter.
It's a performance scooter as well, isn't it?
It's a quick scooter. It's a practical scooter, a little large and heavy, but that's a good thing because everything is small and, in the scooter world. So it's a little different. It's a really nice scooter. In fact, the River Indy's face actually looks like a Yamaha scooter from overseas. We'll put an image up there. So there is that visual linkage. And I remember you had reported some time ago that Yamaha had sent River Indies to Japan for evaluation. And I think those were little signs to us that this was going to happen.
Absolutely.
So Yamaha is taking a different route over here. They have their own product for the European market. And I'm really glad they didn't bring it here because it would have failed. We have a certain expectation in terms of how much range can a scooter give me. 80 to 100 kilometers really needs to happen. Top speed needs to be above 60, 70 kilometers an hour. And that European scooter, I think, had a top speed of 40 or 50.
Yes.
So it's a great thing they scrapped it. It would have failed.
And what is exciting for me is, Rishaad, that they probably may be exporting that scooter from here to overseas market. We've spoken often about the quality prowess of Ather. And River is another entity where we do see that Yamaha has shown faith in their products.
It just goes to show how the startups can succeed in an unexpected way. you create your own product, you think it's for yourself, and then suddenly a legacy manufacturer shows interest in you and they pick up your product, and then it's sold as their own product in a rebadged way. So that's something unique in the two-wheeler space. You've not seen something like that.
It's a performance scooter, and we should see the model hitting the road in the next couple of quarters. We've interacted with several of the top management of Yamaha motorcycle in India. They've been quite mum about it, but they've reiterated time and again that if they come out with a scooter for the Indian market, it has got to resonate with the current character that the company has. And clearly, it is going to be a performance scooter. So something that it'll be quite exciting for us to look out to.
It will.
Look forward to.
Awesome. Okay, Ketan, how do you think the startups can take on the legacy players? What's the future roadmap for a startup now? How do you stand out?
I think it's really difficult. It's a chicken and egg. You've got to hit a scale to be able to have a viable operation. And if the volumes are going to get distributed with so many players out in the market, it's a tough act. It's not easy. Even Ather Energy, we were hearing of company wanting to utilize its existing facility in Hosur and want to go to Aurangabad, but they operate at 35-40% capacity utilization. So it's really not easy. I think what Tarun Mehta and Swapnil have done, build a solid product, and they've kept at it. I think that's the only way possible. And but the biggest challenge always is where do you get the funds from? Now they've been flushed with money. So I'm really banking on Ather Energy to do something really big. They are working on a couple of new platforms, one for scooter and one for motorcycle. And the scooter that they are planning is going to be for the mainstream, probably more affordable than what
they really need that, because right now their products are great. We laud their engineering, the thought that goes into them, the smaller details, all fabulous. And that works to a certain point because you speak to that tech-driven customer who wants that little special extra. They found that customer. But
beyond
to
that,
go beyond that, if you look at any Ather scooter today, Rista being the more affordable, family-oriented scooter, and you need to put the Pro Pack on, it's optional. It's about 15 to 20,000 rupees. But you want the Pro Pack because so many of the intelligent features are in there. The extended warranties in there, which is something I'd like to talk about, extended warranties. And if you do that, then you're looking at an Ather scooter being anywhere from 20 to 30, 35,000 rupees more than an equivalent Bajaj or TVS. And I don't think that can go beyond the point. They need an affordable scooter at that 1 lakh rupee price point. I'm really looking forward to that. Tech is great, but what do we do with scooters? Price? We just start them, ride them to our location. We want frugality, we want comfort, we want ease of and reliability, and just give us that. That's what I want to see in electric scooters. I'm done with the features. I don't use them. Great, it's okay, but just give me a scooter that works. And that's what I want to see from everybody. I want to see that from TVS's upcoming affordable scooter. We haven't entered the new Chetak 3.5 platform, but it seems to get everything right. Big boot, good riding position, good battery size, good performance. I'm excited about that. And I hope Ather does that as well. On the topic of reliability, we are now at the point where Ather has enough scooters on the road in terms of tens of thousands of units that have been on the road for 3 to 5 years. Now we're going to see what is real reliability of electric vehicles.
Absolutely.
They are ahead of the curve compared to Bajaj and TVS in that regard of how many are on the road. I'm curious to see how that goes. And I think that all these companies, the startups are doing it. I think the legacy players also need to do it. You need to give a good warranty.
Yes.
People are doing this flashy 8-year warranty. Do it. You have to earn trust in the product.
Right.
When my petrol scooter fails, I ride it to the local mechanic. He hits it with a spanner and he fixes it. Exaggerating, making fun, but it's easy to fix and it's cheap to fix. When something in these things fail, invariably it's an expensive thing. And if you're going to tell me to put in 40,000-50,000 rupees in a battery pack because something in there has failed, I don't like that. I don't like the thought of that. I don't know if it's going to happen. Give me the warranty. If you have the faith in your product to sell me a 8-year warranty at 5,000 rupees like Ather is doing, give me the warranty. Factor it in with an electric vehicle, and that's how you're going to gain trust from customers to actually make the switch. And I think that's important.
Spot on, Rishaad. We've seen automotive industry go through cycles, right?
Yeah.
Every product has to go through the generations to get better and better. Now, it's only now that we're really going to see the first generation products really hitting the road. There were a big question mark with regards to resale value and what happens to the battery. So a short buyback is something that we've seen in the car business. Hopefully, some of these two-wheeler manufacturers bring in that element so that people are a lot more confident to go and acquire their electric scooter. Nowadays, you come across every second friend who would want to own an electric scooter, but they would always have this skepticism with regards to resale value. So, and exactly what you mentioned, from a service standpoint, from a warranty standpoint, from a resale value standpoint, this is still one area that needs to be addressed. One of the big roadblocks that a lot of these startups have faced is finance is not willing to finance their products because they are not sure of their quality, reliability, and after the product is used for a generation, what is its actually residual value? The discovery of the residual value is going to happen now.
Yes.
And it probably could determine as to how the acceleration of electric vehicles from India will take off from
And
here.
there have been so many iterations, Ketan. I mean, with Chetak itself, there have been changes. Ola, most of all, so many different versions at so many different price points. At one point, they were 90,000 rupees. They went up to 1.5 lakh rupees. Today, Ola's going to be soon selling you a Ola S1 Pro plus 5 kilowatt hour, 2 lakh rupees. They all look the same. In the used market, how is a value going to be attached to each of these products? I'm really keen to see how this fares out, in the next year or two.
And that is one of the biggest factors that financiers are really very hesitant to actually finance some of these startup products. And what I understand from the friends from the finance industry, they are a lot more comfortable financing a TVS or a Bajaj because they know they've dealt with them in the past and they trust them a lot more. So that's a hard thing that startups have had to deal with some of these financiers. So I think a moment of reckoning in a way, we'll come to know as to how a lot of these critical factors are addressed by the ecosystem. Now, what about the recycling? What about recycling of battery? What about repurposing of battery?
I think the manufacturers can get involved in that themselves, because even when your EV battery comes down to 70% of total original value or original capacity, it may not be great for an EV, but it could still be great for power storage.
Absolutely.
We're all going to solar, we're going to static storage, and there's potential there. But I think the manufacturer, again, a show of confidence. Let the manufacturer get involved in the back end in this as well. So then the customer has that confidence that, I won't be lost out on in the end.
I've seen more often than not, Rishaad, when the bottom line is in question, when the company is losing money, then a lot of these critical factors, which actually gives the peace of mind to the consumer, are actually compromised.
Right.
And that is exactly what we've seen over the last so many years. There are umpteen number of stories of how so many of these Ola scooters not really serviced for a while. Now, company claims that those issues have been addressed over a period of time. But there are many other brands out there who do face this service challenge, and the life cycle is usually over 5 to 7 years period.
I think it's even more critical with EV. Very often, whenever we put out a review or even a podcast, we get a lot of feedback in the comments, service is terrible. And this applies to many companies. Just last week, our podcast on TVS, we talked about their reliability improving, their great engineering. A lot of feedback in the comments is service is terrible.
Yes.
It's not a good thing.
Absolutely.
And if the customers are not having a good time with service with petrol, which is a known, relatively easy, relatively affordable technology, with just in terms of part costs,
Absolutely.
then it's even more critical with EV. And all these players, legacy or startup, need to get that sorted out.
And the biggest, brand support can be word of mouth. Now, if a consumer on ground is really unhappy with what you're dishing out on ground, and we did speak about TVS as to how they really need to up their game when it comes to their dealership and the experience at the dealership. And service definitely is a critical part of it. If that is not addressed, then you can only sell up to a certain point. If there are more detractors out there, then it does not give you enough leg to grow ahead in the future. And that has been one of the biggest challenges that a lot of these startups have faced. And hence it goes down to the basics of doing business. Get the right quality, get the right sourcing, get the right branding strategy. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
But it's a hard act. It's a competitive world, and that's where we feel that legacy players are going to have bigger and bigger say. Last financial year, 60% of the total industry sales came from the legacy players. So clearly, legacy players have taken lead. And surprise, Rishaad, FY23, the share of legacy players was minuscule, hardly anything. So in a matter of just few years, we've seen what legacy players can do. It's going to be hard act for startups to keep at it,
But the startups also pave the way forward like they did with the industry. Now, I think that's going to be the way going forward with electric motorcycles. I am not a big believer in electric motorcycles until the battery tech evolves to the point that they can give us decent range. I don't think they make sense. I believe most of the OEMs think the same way, but the startups are forging ahead with motorcycles. We've got Ola, who's about to come out right now with their electric motorcycle. They will be the first big player to do this. Revolt has created something in the industry, maybe 1,000 units a month.
Yes.
But now let's see what the response to Ola's motorcycle is. Ather's developing a motorcycle.
Yes.
Matter has already been. So I don't think we're going to see an electric motorcycle from a legacy player anytime soon.
Yeah, so we keep asking them that question, right? When are we going to see an electric motorcycle coming from Bajaj or TVS or Hero? I mean, we've spoken about how Hero is working on Splendor EV. So Ather's working on a dirt bike. Bajaj has in the past spoken about coming out with motorcycles on KTM Husqvarna, which potentially could be introduced in the Indian market. But again, every single time we go back to them and ask for an update on that, they're like, we're just still watching the market. Clearly, the category is less than 1% of, or what, less than low single digits, barely anything. But then you got to have a strong differentiator as to why should one buy an electric motorcycle. So we've seen the likes of Ultraviolet wanting to do something radically different at the top end. The startup
it had to be different.
They have to.
It doesn't make sense, and that way, Ather's idea of making a dirt bike or that sort of bike is a good idea.
Yes,
because it will appeal to people who want a really lightweight, fun motorcycle, like the Ultraviolet Shockwave.
Yes,
which is coming. I think that's a great idea.
Yes,
but from a mass appeal, scooters for me. I mean, it's got to be scooters when it comes to electric until the technology evolves.
You got to create that used case for a buyer to actually move into an electric motorcycle. And at this point in time, like you mentioned, Rishaad, they are still trying to figure out what is the right space to get into. Yes, the likes of Oben and Matter have tried to get into that motorcycle space in order to offer something different from what a majority of them are going behind, which is the scooters. But yeah, it's a still very minuscule market. But a lot of them do say that with majority of the internal combustion engine market being motorcycle, and for this category, if it has to move towards the majority EV, motorcycles have to find a use case. So again, it's got to do with what is the size of battery, what is the kind of range, could we move from LFP to sodium, more compact battery, higher range, maybe it's too early.
5 years.
Yes, probably 5 years. We've seen a motorcycle from Royal Enfield as well. Again, completely out of character for Royal Enfield to do.
And I don't have much expectation for it for India.
Yes. So again, a lightweight kind of a motorcycle that they've tried to.
There's a reason they're doing that though. Why is Royal? You had a very interesting reasoning for why it's important for Royal Enfield.
Yes, Rishaad. So just like the car space, there will be a CAFE norm that will be introduced for the two-wheeler manufacturer. And amongst all the two-wheeler manufacturers, Royal Enfield is the only one who does not have a smaller displacement mass market motorcycle. So if tomorrow there were to be penalties levied on a CAFE front, Royal Enfield has to work on alternatives. They'll be hit the hardest. And hence, we've spoken about it in Royal Enfield podcast in the past that they are working on that 250cc engine. They are working on a hybrid solution on that. They are working on an EV. So you may potentially see different alternatives. You've seen Bajaj coming out with CNG. There could be E80, E100, E20 is already available, ethanol-based fuel. So yes, that's the beauty, the beauty about two-wheeler space is you're going to see so many different products, so many different categories, so many different brands. So the market is going to be definitely spoiled for choice when it comes to the alternatives that we're going to see. Let's not forget, Ola is still number one, and Bhavish is still very ambitious of converting this ICE market into an EV. And if he can sustain the momentum, if he could get the right formula to make money and sell more, it is going to be an interesting space to be. And at the end of the day, with the kind of pricing that he offers for his scooters, if he get quality products at that price point, the rest of the market will have to react. And at the end of the day, the Indian consumer will be a winner. So we need them. They've definitely, I would say, woken up the legacy players to do a lot more than what they were doing to begin with. And now we see all of them really, into thick of things and doing what they're supposed to be doing. Viability is the biggest barometer. If they can make money, I think startups can continue to have a much bigger say in the future.
And push the legacy players to keep making more interesting.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a nice way to end it. I've been thinking about the two-wheeler space versus the car space. The beauty is that we have so many Indian startups in the two-wheeler space that you don't have in the car space. You got the big players, you got the Chinese players.
Yes.
Indian players, big players, international players, big players, and the Chinese player. But we have startups, and that's wonderful. And I wish them well, but the legacy players are going to take it forward.
If Ola is able to turn its corner, if Ather is able to build its scale, if Ultraviolet is able to find its niche, if River is able to find its set of buyers and yet make money, I think it'll be good to have good.
It'll be a great mix.
Yeah, it'll be good to have good choices in the market.
Yes. So let us know what you think. How does the industry progress? How would you like to see the industry progress? Let us know in the comments below. But that's it for us. As always, the Deep Drive podcast comes out every Saturday at 11 a.m. And if you want to listen to this, we're also on Apple Music and Spotify.